Samantha informed her stepfather, Martin, that she, Thomas, and he planned to adopt a child. They had already made the decision. Samantha shared with Martin, who was now her sole remaining family besides her husband. Tracy, Samantha's mother, tragically passed away while giving birth to her sibling when Samantha was just 18 years old. The difficult delivery also resulted in the baby's untimely passing. This heart-wrenching experience brought Samantha and Martin closer together, and they found solace in each other's company. Samantha's biological father disappeared many years ago, and Martin had been the only paternal figure in her life for a long time. Because of this, he eventually became like her real father, which is why he walked her down the aisle when she married Thomas at 20 years old. She wanted to have a big family and couldn't wait to have children. That's why they married so young. Unfortunately, 3 years had passed and nothing was working. They did 2 rounds of IVF and still nothing, so adoption seemed like the best option for them at that point. I think that's a great decision, Sam. Are you going to adopt a baby or an older child? Martin asked, thinking it was beautiful that they might become parents at last. We don't know. We're going to the local orphanage and meeting with the director about it, but there are adoption agencies too. We're going to explore all-out options, Samantha explained, excited at the idea of finally becoming a mother. They lived in Washington, D.C. and knew of an orphanage near their home where they could meet some kids and see if an older child would work for them. So they made an appointment and were greeted by the kind director who showed them around. Most of the kids were outside playing in the big garden, and Samantha was glad they had such a beautiful facility. But one kid caught her attention. He was sitting at the side with his head on his knees. Her heartstrings were pulled by the scene, and she asked if she could approach him. The director said yes. "Hey kid, what's wrong?" Samantha asked the child, kneeling in front of him. "Nothing," the boy said, peeking at Samantha but laying his head back down. "What's your name?" "Miles," he replied, and finally lifted his head, looking at Samantha directly. Something in her heart clicked in that 1 second, and she knew this kid was special for some reason. They continued talking, and she discovered that another kid had stolen Miles' ball, and they didn't want to let him play. But eventually, the other children called him over, and Miles smiled brightly, standing up and running towards them. Thomas had witnessed the encounter and seen a look in his wife's eyes. "Can we talk about that kid?" he told the director, and Samantha grinned at her husband. After several weeks of paperwork, they were finally ready to take Miles home. They had prepared a room for him, bought tons of toys, including a goal post for the backyard where Thomas and Miles could play soccer. The 5-year-old took to their home as if he was always meant to be there. There were ups and downs, but it was simpler than Samantha imagined. He had even bonded with Martin and started calling him Grandpa. Over the next few months, Samantha's friends met the kid, and they were all in shock at how closely she resembled her son. They even had similar tastes in food and made the same hand gestures. It was odd. Moreover, when they took Miles to the doctor for a general round of tests, they discovered that they were the same blood type, which was incredibly rare. Thomas was particularly baffled by all these coincidences, so he decided and convinced Samantha to take a DNA test. The results were shocking. Everything indicated that Miles was Samantha's half-brother. But how was that possible? "I never knew my father, Thomas. Who knows how many kids he had out there," she told her husband after reading the results. They were in their bedroom, and Miles was already asleep, unaware of what they learned. "I don't think he's your father's child. I think he's your mother's child," Thomas interjected, shaking his head from his spot on the bed. "That's impossible. Think about it. Miles is 5 years old. The timeline fits perfectly," he continued, giving the facts. "And every once in a while, when I see him and Martin together, well, I get this feeling like they are related for real." "But what would that mean?" Samantha questioned, getting angry. "That Martin lied about the death of my sibling and abandoned him? That's crazy. Martin is a sweetheart. Are you willing to live not knowing the truth?" Thomas asked her seriously. Samantha knew he was right. They had to find out what happened. The next day, she stole Martin's hair and got them DNA tested at some point. The results later proved that he was Miles' biological father, and she demanded the truth from him. "He killed your mother," he bellowed after denying everything, but they couldn't refute the results. "He did not. He's an innocent baby." Samantha yelled at him for the first time in her life and couldn't believe what he had done. "I couldn't deal with it," Martin continued. So you just left him to languish in the system. Are you crazy? She continued, angry tears filling her eyes. Martin nodded, not saying another word, and Samantha returned that nod with pursed lips. Okay, she said and stormed out of his house. Despite discovering the familial connection, Thomas and Samantha proceeded with the adoption of Miles. Surprisingly, knowing that he was family actually streamlined the process, although it still took several years to complete the paperwork. When Miles turned 18, they finally revealed the truth to him, explaining why they had kept their distance from Martin for so long. They assured Miles that he was free to connect with Martin if he wished, but to their surprise, he expressed contentment with his current family. With soulful eyes, he told Samantha, "I have my family right here. I don't need more. You're my mother, and Dad is my father. That's all I need."